the clerk first.
Private members' business. Private members' business item 766, standing the name of Reverend Mr Nile in relation to the Local Government Amendment Parliamentary Inquiry Recommendations Bill.
Reverend the Honourable Fred Nile.
I move that leave be given to bring in a bill for an act to amend the Local Government Act 1993 and the Election Funding, Expenditure and Disclosures Act 1981 to make further provision in relation to the election, governance and financing of councils in order to give effect to certain recommendations made by the relevant Legislative Council Committee in its inquiry into local government.
The question is the motion of the member. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those to the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Reverend Nile.
I present the bill and move that the bill be read a first time and printed.
The question is that the bill be read a first time and printed. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those to the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Clerk.
Local Government Amendment Parliamentary Inquiry Recommendations Bill 2016. First reading.
Reverend Nile.
Mr Deputy President, I move that this bill be now read a second time. I rise before the House on behalf of the Christian Democratic Party to speak to my Local Government Amendment Parliamentary Inquiry Recommendations Bill 2016, a bill that addresses and recognises the recommendations from the inquiry into local government in New South Wales, chaired by my colleague, the Honourable Paul Green, MLC. That was one of our committees that conducted the inquiry, and perhaps this is a unique bill. It's very seldom that a bill is introduced to implement the recommendations of a committee. Normally we wait on the government to do that, but in this case we feel we should take the initiative, which we're doing. The object of this bill is to give effect to some of the recommendations contained in that Legislative Council General Purpose Standing Committee's report entitled...
We're doing our own work in this area.
Yeah, I'm helping you. It's like on the right arm.
Only improve government legislation.
Contained in that Legislative Council General Purpose Standing Committee's report entitled Local Government in New South Wales 2015. Those recommendations relate to amalgamations and other boundary changes, joint service delivery and cooperation between councils, mayoral elections, political donations, election expenditure and the financing of councils. So these proposals really come from the grassroots of local government. That's the reality. I will give a basic overview of the bill now and then expand on each amendment further into my speech. We aim to amend the Local Government Act 1993. A. To modify the functions and procedure of the Boundaries Commission. B. To increase the independence of the Boundaries Commission. C. To extend the capacity for councils to cooperate in the exercise of their functions. D. To modify the financing of councils. E. To modify the procedure for the election of mayors. The Election Funding, Expenditure and Disclosures Act 1981 will also be amended to introduce donation and spending caps for local government elections. The first local councils in New South Wales were established in 1842, and by 1858 there were 327 local councils in the state. Over time, there have been many reforms to local government. There have also been a series of reviews of council boundaries and rounds of amalgamations, the most recent of which, prior to the one announced by the Premier today, the most recent of which was in 2004, when it reduced the number of councils from 172 to the present total of 172. 172 to 152. These councils range from 6 kilometres squared to 53,000 kilometres squared and serve populations between 1,200 and 300,000. There is widespread agreement that reform of the sector is needed, and this consensus has been building for some years. The New South Wales Government's plans for reform were set out in its Fit for the Future program in September 2014. Fit for the Future was developed in direct response to the report of the Independent Local Government Review Panel, in which the government stated, a Fit for the Future Council is one that is sustainable, is efficient, effectively manages infrastructure and services, has sufficient scale and capacity to engage effectively across community, industry and government to deliver key priorities. The Legislative Council inquiry found the government did not accept all of the independent local government review panel's recommendations. Instead, it appears to have deliberately chosen to function on the structural and boundary changes suggested by the panel. The Legislative Council Gender Purpose Standing Committee No. 6 inquiry into local government, as I said, which is chaired by my colleague, the Honourable Paul Green, found the apparent failure of the New South Wales Government to build on the consultative approach that had been established during Destination 2036 conference in Dubbo in 2011. Mr Deputy President, a key principle for successful reform is building partnerships and bringing people with you on the road to change. Many of this inquiry's participants would argue that the Fit for the Future program did not do this, and of course we're now seeing protests all over New South Wales against the government's current merger proposals. My colleague, the Honourable Paul Green, stated, quote, "Lessons from a previous era have taught us that local government is not one size fits all. Every community sees itself as unique and it needs to have to be addressed through the filter. History has shown that when the state government does not acknowledge the unique needs of communities or listen to its local government counterparts, its days in government are numbered." End of quote. Remember what's happening to other state governments. The government's response to the local government inquiry argued all reviews in the council amalgamations, quote, "involved extensive engagement with the local government sector," end of quote. The problem is the feedback is often negative against the government's proposals. So the consultation works on one hand, they get the feedback, then they ignore the feedback. The consultation sounds as if they've had agreement, but they have not received agreement. The Honourable Paul Green went on to say, the inquiry finding number 8 regarding the adequacy of New South Wales government consultations with councils and the community on local government reform is not supported. The Fit for the Future reform program built on the consultative approach of Destination 2036 as acknowledged by the inquiry and was developed taking into account extensive community consultation undertaken by both the independent local government review panel and government. Over a 3-year period, the panel held face-to-face discussion across the state with councils, community organisations, businesses and local ratepayers and residents about their councils. One of the most troubling issues with council amalgamations is whilst the game was being played, the rules were being changed. The question has to be asked, if this was such a consultative process, why has it caused such a monumental uproar in local council disgust?
Thank you.
And we've just seen that in the main park behind Parliament today at 1:30 today. You'll see it on television tonight. The bill I am presenting will make changes to the Local Government Act 1993, which reflects the findings of the Legislative Council inquiry into local government. In particular, that no merger of councils can be proposed by the Minister unless there is demonstrable evidence that the councils are severely financially unsustainable to the point of insolvency or otherwise unable to maintain an acceptable level of service provision to their respective local communities. And we know for a fact that many of the councils where there's pressure to merge are very efficient and effective financially and have bank balances. They're not in debt, they're not running out of money, and also there's a lot of positive feedback from the local community by ratepayers of their happiness with the provisions provided by the council. And I'm speaking of the Warringah Council where I live. I now move to speak directly to the overview of the bill. This bill seeks to amend the Local Government Act 1993. Part A seeks to modify the functions and procedure of the Boundaries Commission. Firstly, as suggested by the 2013 Independent Local Government Review Panel report, this bill seeks to allow the Boundaries Commission to initiate proposals for amalgamations, boundary changes or to constitute an area when warranted by appropriate public authorities. Such authorities include the Minister, a council, or by a specified minimum number of enrolled electors. Secondly, this bill changes the Boundaries Commission procedure in examining and reporting on amalgamation and boundary change proposals. And all these matters arose in the committee's inquiry that I referred to from actual feedback over the government's current merger proposals and methods in operation. The bill retains the current provisions for public inquiries but removes the Minister's power to decide whether an inquiry is warranted. It also requires the Commission to conduct a survey or poll of all residents and ratepayers in the areas affected, unless it is a voluntary merger and councils have undertaken adequate community consultation. And that's a very important aspect of this bill. Also, it's important to ensure the interests of residents and ratepayers are heard. Thirdly, this bill proposes the government adopt the policy of no forced amalgamations of councils unless the council is shown to be severely financially unsustainable or unable to provide services. Noting the council should only be considered to be severely financially unsustainable if they are bankrupt or are on the imminent verge of bankruptcy. Fourth, the bill requires a period of transition between any decision to amalgamate council areas and the creation of the new merged council. This allows sufficient time to ensure effective planning, consultation and implementation and ongoing service delivery to local communities. And that's a very important factor in our current debate in this state over the government's merger proposals. The bill takes into consideration the needs of local communities that need the council processes to remain largely uninterrupted and also allows for consideration to be given to staff, helping to ensure there is adequate support and assistance if their positions are lost in amalgamations. And that's a very sore point, of course, with the employees of local councils and the union that represents them. And we heard the union representative speaking to this outside the Parliament at 1:30 today because of their concern with these merger proposals that many of the council staff will lose their jobs. And that's why I gave an assurance today that there should be a 5-year guarantee of employment by all local government employees during this merger process. And when two councils are combined, obviously there will be a temptation to reduce staff, that the staff members should have some certainty in their employment by a 5-year guaranteed employment period. Fifth, by requiring the Commission to undertake regular reviews of local government boundaries across the state by conducting an inquiries. Sixth, to empower the Commission to initiate proposals for boundary changes when the opinion that change is required arises. Seventh, changes the process for the Boundaries Commission's examination and reporting. 8, extending the list of factors to which the Commission must have regard in exercising its functions. Part B seeks to increase the independence of the Boundaries Commission. That's a very important one because there is suspicion as to whether the Boundaries Commission simply rubber stamps the government's plans. It must be independent and be seen to be independent. That's why we're talking now in our bill about the membership of that Boundaries Commission. Allowing the Boundaries Commission opportunity to provide an independent and consultative approach to considering amalgamation proposals. That's vital. Firstly, by changing the membership of the Boundaries Commission so that it is to consist of 3 commissioners appointed by the Governor, one of whom is nominated by the Minister to be the independent chairperson of the Commission, with the other 2 being nominated jointly by the Minister and this is very important, the President of Local Government New South Wales. This gives local government a say in the process. Secondly, by making serving public officials, and this is very important, be noted by all members of this House. Secondly, by making serving public officials current or former members of a council, county council or joint operational organisation, or current or former members of the Legislative Assembly or of the Legislative Council ineligible for membership of that commission. That's to ensure its independence. Thirdly, by requiring the Minister to ensure that the Commission is assisted in the performance of its functions by a Secretariat consisting of the number of staff determined by the Minister, having regard to the recommendation of the Boundaries Commission and Local Government New South Wales. Part C would extend the capacity for councils to cooperate in the exercise of their functions. Firstly, by providing for councils to cooperate in the exercise of their functions through joint operational organisations, which will replace county councils. This is a very positive recommendation and one which has been widely discussed prior to the merger proposals of the government, and in a number of places have been very effective. In the cooperative model of local governance proposed by the New South Wales Government in its Fit for the Future agenda was the establishment of joint organisations. This cooperative model is currently being piloted in 5 locations throughout New South Wales. In July 2015, the Office of Local Government conducted a mid-pilot workshop involving councils from the 5 pilot joint organisation regions to discuss the successes, challenges and learnings from the piloting of joint organisations thus far. Participants at the workshop noted several achievements of the pilot program thus far. They also recognised various challenges that had arisen. So one of the positive values of that joint organisation is that the 2 or 3 councils that participate can then work out what equipment they need. They can share large vehicles, earth-moving vehicles, machinery for repairing roads and so on, and that would reduce some of the capital costs then for those 3 councils who take part in this joint operation. During the inquiry, promising signs were shown by the joint organisation pilot program. Despite the Independent Local Government Review Panel's recommendation that the joint organisation should not be rolled out across the state until council amalgamations had taken place, we believe the reverse, that establishing the joint organisation statewide should have been the first step in reforming local government before considering whether to proceed to costly and disruptive amalgamations. And they will be costly and they will be disruptive. Secondly, by providing for councils to cooperate in collaboration, planning and service delivery through regional joint authorities which may have service delivery functions. The Joint Regional Authorities model is very similar in structure and function to that of the New South Wales Government's own Regional Joint Organisation pilot program. And it's a pity that the government seems to have lost faith in that process. We note that the establishment of the joint organisations reflects the strong demand from regional councils to engage in joint entities in the absence of the New South Wales Government's joint organisation pilot program in the metropolitan region. This model achieved the desired outcomes of strategic capacity and regional planning without losing local identity and without incurring the very large costs that accompany amalgamations. Part D of the bill will modify the financing of councils. First, by ensuring that water utilities currently operated by local councils remain under the exclusive control of that council, unless the council unanimously resolves otherwise after community consultation. Water utilities play an important role in ensuring the financial sustainability of many local councils, particularly those in regional areas, which you would believe should be a very important factor for those members representing country electorates and members of the National Party. Water utilities are a core piece of the puzzle in regards to council finances and play an important part in securing the services that councils provide to their communities. Secondly, by ensuring consistency in the treatment of assets in the financial reports of council. Cost shifting by state and federal governments is an issue that has a significant impact on the financial sustainability of local councils, where the responsibility for and costs of providing services assets, concessions or other regulatory functions are imposed on local government by the New South Wales Government, the New South Wales Government should provide adequate funding to cover those costs. So where there's cost shifting, the cost should be evaluated and the New South Wales State Government should meet those costs and not simply put that burden on local government. Thirdly, create an exemption from rate pegging and allow councils to determine their own rates conditional on the delivery of a local works plan outlining the expenditure associated with any proposed rate increases and demonstrated community support. Since 2011 and 12, Independent Pricing and Regulatory Tribunal, IPART, have determined the rate peg to apply for each financial year. IPART's determination is based mainly on the Local Government Cost Index, which measures price changes over the previous year for goods, materials and labour used by an average council. Communities should be able to decide the level of services provided by their local council and the rates they are willing to pay for such services. Rates, therefore, should be set by local councils in consultation with their community, rather than by the New South Wales Government. Part E modifies the procedure for the election of mayors. Firstly, by requiring a constitutional referendum to be held in a local government area to decide if a mayor should be elected by electors for those councils where the mayor is elected by the councillors. Secondly, the bill seeks to extend the term of office of mayors who are elected by councillors from 1 year to 2 years. This would give some continuity in the policy decisions of the council. It has been identified in evidence from the inquiry into local government in New South Wales that 1 year is too short for council-elected mayors to be in office. Longer terms for elected mayors will mean improved stability and stakeholder relationships within local councils, thereby improving the delivery of services to the community. This bill also seeks to amend the Election Funding Expenditure and Disclosures Act 1981 to introduce donation and spending caps for the local government elections. I note today that the government has also issued a media release regarding those matters. The bill takes note of the recommendations of the General Purpose Standing Committee and seeks to incorporate those as well as the findings of that committee. So I present this bill to the House and urge the members of the House to give it serious consideration. I know we're in the midst of government policies and changes, but I believe we can still consider this bill and hopefully the House will adopt it. There are many practical advantages in the legislation which in the long term will actually help the government to do a better job in governing the state.